In a prestigious music academy where polished shoes clicked on marble floors and designer clothes were the norm, Mr. Henry pushed his mop quietly along the edge of the grand recital hall. At 64, with graying hair and a faded uniform, he blended into the background like furniture. Most students didn't notice him, or chose not to. But as the afternoon light poured through the tall windows, something pulled him toward the grand piano at center stage. He paused, hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers to press a single key. It sang softly, a whisper of something long buried. At that moment, a well-dressed student named Brielle stormed in. Her jaw dropped. "Get your hands off my piano," she snapped. Her voice echoed, and the room turned to stare. A few students snickered, others shook their heads. "Does he even know what that costs?" someone muttered. Mr. Henry slowly backed away, face flushed with shame, but instead of fleeing, he sat down, closed his eyes, and began to play. What happened next silenced the room. His hands moved with a grace and power no one expected. The melody that flowed was rich with emotion, telling a story of loss, hope, and something heartbreakingly beautiful. Conversations died. Even Brielle was frozen, eyes wide, her posture softening with every note. When the music stopped, the silence was heavier than before. An older professor stepped forward, his face pale with recognition. That's your composition. You're Henry Carter. You played Carnegie when you were 17. Mr. Henry nodded, quietly. The room shifted. Laughter turned to awe. Brielle stepped forward, her tone hushed, sincere. Will you teach me? Weeks later, the hall echoed again, not with judgment, but with music. Mr. Henry, once overlooked, now sat beside students eager to learn from the soul in his sound. Brielle, too, returned daily, not just to play, but to listen, to grow. In a place once marked by privilege, a janitor's forgotten song became the heart of it all. As Mr. Henry's calloused finger gently pressed one of the piano's ivory keys, a soft, longing note filled the empty recital hall. But the moment was shattered when Brielle, a wealthy, high-strung student in a designer coat, strode in and caught sight of him. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Get your hands off my piano," she barked, her voice sharp and echoing through the vast room. Heads turned. A few students lounging nearby laughed, some covering their mouths, others openly mocking. To them, the idea of a janitor daring to touch a world-class instrument was ridiculous, almost offensive. Mr. Henry stiffened, his hand frozen above the keys, eyes lowered as the laughter built like a wave crashing over him. Years of invisibility, of being seen only as the man who mopped the floors, pressed in on him. He felt the weight of their judgment, their assumptions. But then, something shifted in him. Maybe it was the sting of humiliation, or maybe it was something deeper, something that had been waiting silently for too long. Without a word, he took a deep breath, lowered himself onto the piano bench, and placed both hands gently on the keys. The room quieted, confusion replacing mockery. He closed his eyes. Then, he began to play. At first, it was a single melody, soft and sorrowful. But it quickly bloomed into something richer, complex, beautiful, aching with emotion. Conversation ceased. The students who had just laughed now stood in stunned silence. Even Brielle, still standing in the doorway, couldn't look away. The music reached into places words never could, silencing pride, cutting through prejudice. The room that had mocked now listened in awe, as the janitor they never saw revealed a soul they'd never imagined. Within seconds of Mr. Henry's fingers gliding across the keys, the room transformed. The sneers and laughter that had filled the space vanished like mist under sunlight. His hands moved with elegance and command, each note pouring out a story too deep for words, one of heartbreak, struggle, and unshakable hope. The music didn't just echo through the hall, it resonated through every person present. Teachers emerged from their offices, drawn by the sound. They stood frozen in the doorway, eyes widening as they recognized the complexity and soul of the piece. The students, once smug and dismissive, now watched with open mouths. Even Brielle, the girl who moments ago had led the ridicule, slowly lowered herself into a seat, her eyes locked on the man at the piano. Her expression shifted, first confusion, then wonder, then something softer. A tear slipped down her cheek. Mr. Henry played like a man who hadn't just learned music, but lived inside it. Every note told a story. Every pause was filled with meaning. He wasn't just playing the piano. He was reminding them all what it meant to feel deeply, to dream, to endure. And then, after one final trembling chord, he lifted his hands. Silence followed. No one clapped. No one moved. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness, it was the silence that comes when something sacred has happened, and no one wants to be the first to break it. In that moment, Mr. Henry wasn't a janitor. He wasn't someone to overlook. He was a master, an artist, and suddenly, everyone in that room saw him. After the final note faded into the stillness, an older professor stepped forward, his eyes wide with disbelief and recognition. That's your composition, isn't it?" he asked softly, voice trembling with emotion. "You were the prodigy who disappeared after your sister died so many years ago." The room held its breath. Mr. Henry nodded quietly, the weight of his past settling over him like a heavy but familiar cloak. For years, the music world had thought he was lost. Vanished under the weight of grief and circumstance. But here he was, standing before them not as a forgotten janitor, but as a man who had carried that pain inside him and transformed it into something beautiful. The tension in the room melted away, replaced by a newfound respect that no title or wealth could buy. Brielle, who had only moments ago mocked him, now stood with a humble look in her eyes. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she approached him and asked, "Will you teach me?" There was no arrogance, no entitlement, just a genuine desire to learn from someone who had lived the music rather than just played it. In that moment, the boundaries between them dissolved. The rich girl and the janitor became simply two people bound by the power of music and the strength of the human spirit. The room, once filled with judgment, was now filled with hope, a reminder that sometimes, the greatest talents are hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting for a chance to shine again. Weeks later, the grand recital hall was alive once more with the sound of music. But this time, the notes flowed not just from Brielle's fingers, but also from Mr. Henry's. No longer the unnoticed janitor, he had been welcomed as the Academy's newest mentor, a role earned not by status, but by the undeniable depth and soul in his playing. Students gathered around him, eager to learn not just technique, but the story and emotion behind every note. The atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been division and judgment, now there was respect and admiration. Mr. Henry's presence reminded everyone that talent and humanity often arrive wrapped in unexpected forms. Brielle, too, had transformed. She sat beside him at the piano bench, no longer a proud student lording over a world of privilege, but a humble apprentice soaking in lessons of music and life. Together, they played, not as teacher and pupil, but as two hearts connected by a shared passion. Through their music, they bridged the gap between rich and poor, past and present, pain and hope. The story of the janitor who was once mocked had become a powerful testament to redemption, kindness, and the unyielding power of the human spirit. In that hall, filled with light and melody, everyone could feel it. True greatness isn't about where you come from, it's about the courage to rise, the strength to forgive, and the grace to teach others to do the same.